Yes, I have designed things before this. Now, video game design is my field. That's my forte. That's what I do. That's what you'd say my calling in life is at this point. I have designed many games that never really got released because it was like a student project. Like just to run through them, I'd say I've made two or three casual games, a tabletop RPG, a hidden object game, um, an arcade game. There was one more which was a narrative driven game which I did for the Jam, for Ludum Dare in 3 days. What else? I've also designed a board game. I've done many mods for games like Age of Empires and Warcraft. So yeah, I've designed quite a few things before this. So I'd definitely say I'm a little bit more versed in the design aspect than I am in the art aspect of game development. Um, so yeah, that's really it. What was different about designing this game? Okay, that's the difference in designing this game is that it was using something that I haven't really worked with before. Now, generally, when I work on games, I generally think of a controller and a monitor, any kind of controller really, like a keyboard and a mouse and a screen. Now, when it goes to a mobile phone, like something like a handheld device is like mobile, uh, the controller is the screen, and I think that's the area where I kind of had to have a different line of thinking. Basically, I didn't want the fingers, because every time you put the fingers on the phone, you somehow block a part of it. And that to me, I never really enjoyed that aspect of it. So I kind of said, let's kind of use the gyroscope. Let's make a tilt game, but not the kind of tilt game where you basically have to turn your phone 360 degrees for everything and just keep doing that. It was a more laid back tilt game, which felt, I guess, a bit more natural than games that focus just on tilt. Um, so that was the thing. The screen wasn't blocked. You'd be seeing everything that was going on without ever really having an issue, like your fingers blocking the screen, for example. That was what was different about this. Also different would be that I'm generally not very well versed with casual games, because generally I play games which are more independent but are not exactly the casual realm, as some would say. So it was an interesting thought experiment and a general experiment for me to do to design a casual game. The idea behind the design of this game was that it should be playable pretty much by anybody, and it should be enjoyable by anybody. Um, Now, that's an interesting theory because I think it's the theory I think Shigeru Miyamoto uses in some capacity. He, I think, makes his wife or someone play his games, and if she likes it, the level pretty much passes. I don't think her wife is a gamer and doesn't enjoy games too much, so that's a weird way of testing it, but that's really it. So in my case, what I did was I would go to people who generally don't play games at all, and I would try to see how they would react to the game. And what I noticed when we were early in the testing of the game was that they enjoy playing it, and the idea of it was so clear and simple that people would just grasp it out of the air. That was the idea behind it, to make sure that everybody who touched it could play it. Now, I think that it has a drawback in there that people who are more seasonal gamers, some people like me who prefer to play games that are much more difficult in terms of their gameplay mechanics and levels, they'd find it a little bit too easy. And that's, I guess, a drawback of trying to get everybody to play. You kind of make it a bit easier for people who are well versed in gaming. But, you win some, you lose some. The biggest hurdle in the design of the game was that we were working with hardware we weren't familiar with. As Lance and Tejas might have said earlier, this was our first mobile game. We hadn't made mobile games before this, and it's still weird to us how we were able to pull this off in a short amount of time. Because when we went in, we had absolutely no idea how to get a game to be run on a mobile phone like Android. That was the hardware we released on. And the biggest, I think that would be the biggest hurdle in there. Coming very closely behind that was that the design has to be very limited and as a result kind of repetitive, because the game was simple and it was on the periphery of being maybe too simple, and what that resulted in was repetitive gameplay. So it was definitely a challenge while I was designing like the episodes to make sure that it didn't get repetitive and feeling the exact same level after level. So I think that was the biggest hurdle in the game, and coming up with 50 levels to fill the game with and still making them feel fresh while having such limited options within the game was certainly a challenge. What tools did I use to design? Okay, so the tools I used in this one was Microsoft Word, Excel, and Photoshop. And what I did with Photoshop was I made this visual thing of where the objects would be placed so that the programmer could then slot it into the game. While the Excel and Word were kind of describing how each specific episode and each specific set of levels was conveying what kind of a message. And that's really it. Other than that, I think other tool would be just testing again and again to see if something works, something doesn't. If it doesn't work, what could make it work? Just test it all out. Other than that, design really doesn't require too many tools. Maybe you could go and get it tested from others too. That maybe could count as a tool. What advice would I give to an aspiring game designer? Oh, well, I think I can kind of give an advice there because I went ahead and asked a lot of people before became an aspiring game designer myself about what they would describe to do. So the best advice I could come up with and I heard was that try to be a little empathetic. Now, empathetic is basically trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes and kind of try to experience what the other person is feeling. Um, Now, what that means basically is try and go somewhere on the road, somewhere on the street, and just try to see somebody who's maybe standing and just kind of think of what he's seeing, thinking, feeling just by the posture he's in, the facial expression he or she has. Just kind of think through there. Think through, like go different places. And I think extra credits kind of said the same thing. Basically, try and look at different perspectives and people and their points of view on anything. It doesn't have to be really big topics. It can just be something simple as maybe like crossing a road or like going out for a drink. Something very simple. Just that. Other than that, I would say go and play games and see how the levels are constructed. And if you really want to kind of go hardcore into this, go ahead and try to play board games. See how the rules change. Try to change your own rules. See how that affects the game. Try to make the game better if you can with your designs. Try to craft your own rules, or better yet, make your own board game and see how that fares while you try to get that play tested with others. There are many books written on the act of game design. You can pretty much just have a random Google search and you can see the ones that are pretty good. So certainly pick up some books, play some games, think of that. That was generally my entrance into the world of game development from the designer side. It's definitely not a hard world to get into, but it's certainly something that's